America, we are back, baby. Welcome to another episode of America Unfiltered with James Pascalides. We got a great episode for you tonight, folks. Hope you guys are having a good day today. We got a lot of different topics to talk about today. We got a ton of different things happening. We have more Epstein updates. We have more updates from Tucker Carlson and Charlie Kirk. More updates on Russia, Ukraine. We have just various news updates, kind of back to how we used to do things. We're also going to talk about things that happen at the White House, Trump's agenda getting pushed through even more, and one big bill failing today and a lot of the controversy behind it. So we're going to, like I said, we're going to talk about a lot today. We got a good show for you tonight, folks. But there's a lot going on. I want to talk about the Trump and Epstein connections. You know, Trump is now taking to Truth Social to talk about how Republicans need to stop talking about this. They need to be grateful for everything else he's done, that this is all just a hoax. And not only that, while he wants us to thank us for everything he's done, he is sending more weapons to Ukraine, possibly. He is putting a deadline on Russia. So similar to what Biden was doing, we're right back to where we were when Biden was in office when it comes to the Russia-Ukraine situation. We are finally getting, like I said, some of Trump's agenda pushed through. We're seeing more bureaucrats be fired. We're seeing more people be let go and more cuts be made from Doge, Elon Musk, and Donald Trump, finally saving the taxpayers' dollars. And then, like I said, with this bill that failed, we saw at the last second, we saw an independent slip in the full release of the Jeffrey Epstein files into a bill that was already supposed to be voted on, and the bill failed because of other things that were in the bill, which now limits the ability for us to see the Epstein information, and they're now making it seem like Republicans crashed this bill because they didn't want the Epstein information to come out. So we'll talk about all that. We'll talk about much more today. Great show for you tonight, folks. To dive right into the first topic, I want to talk about Trump's Truth Social posts. I want to talk about Trump saying that we should be grateful, and I want to talk about where he's passing the blame, because it makes no sense to me. If you look at the timeline of the Jeffrey Epstein death, the arrest, all the controversy, the timeline of when he was trafficking the children with Ghislaine, the timeline of when he met Les Wexner, when he met Ehud Barak, and when he became connected to all these people that are essentially Mossad, are essentially pedophiles around the globe who are trafficking children. When you look at the timeline of that, and you look at the timeline of the arrest, when he was killed, and when the information was buried, Trump was in power for a lot of it. Trump was in power when Jeffrey Epstein was arrested. Trump was in power when Jeffrey Epstein was killed. Trump was in power when the Jeffrey Epstein information was then buried years later. And yes, it wasn't released during the Biden administration, but they made no plan to release it. They made no statements to release it. So it's crazy to think that Trump, while in power, was he oversaw the death, the arrest, and the burial of all the information regarding the Jeffrey Epstein case. And now Donald Trump, in his Truth Social posts, is saying to Republicans, be grateful, I've done so much for you, this is the golden age of America, and he said that this is all a hoax, that the Jeffrey Epstein conspiracy, as he's calling it, because we're now the Tower 7 conspiracy theorists, like I've said in previous episodes. You know, we're just crazy for thinking that what's true is true, that the overwhelming information that shows Mossad is true. But Trump is saying that Obama, Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, and the deep state created the entire Jeffrey Epstein narrative to try and bury Donald Trump if he were to get reelected. Donald, I cannot express how disappointed I am in you over this. I cannot express how upset I am that not only are you protecting this pedophile, you are going to weird lengths to protect this pedophile. And you are now blaming people who were not even in office when this person was arrested. Yes, Obama was in power shortly after Jeffrey Epstein had his first arrest in 2007, but by the time Obama was in power, no one was talking about Jeffrey Epstein. You didn't really hear Jeffrey Epstein's name in the news until 2018 or so. So why is Donald Trump blaming Obama? Why is he blaming Russia? Why is he blaming Pelosi and the deep state and Biden? He's saying they created this narrative, that they created the files. But that makes no sense because you pushed the narrative, Donald Trump. Pam Bondi, you pushed the narrative. Kristi Noem, you pushed the narrative. Charlie Kirk, you pushed the narrative. Tom Homan, you pushed the narrative. Caroline Leavitt, you definitely pushed the narrative. But above all, back to square one, Donald Trump, you pushed that narrative. You literally campaigned on releasing the Epstein information. You went around from rally to rally saying, I'm going to release the Epstein information. I'm going to expose the corrupt pedophilia and corrupt bureaucracy that's happening in Washington, D.C. I'm not going to let pedophilia run this country. And now you're literally letting pedophilia run this country. You failed to protect the thing you said you would destroy, and you became the thing you said you would destroy. You became the deep state. When you started protecting Epstein, when you started protecting pedophiles, you became no better than the pedophiles you were protecting. And you only made the Trump supporters like me and like a lot of others who are now questioning you, question whether you are on the list or not. It is a real possibility that Donald Trump is on the Epstein list. And I know I've been talking about Epstein for the last 6 or 7 days or so, but I'm not going to stop talking about it. Like, there will be other topics in this episode. It's not going to be a full, all Epstein episode. But I'm not going to stop talking about it until we get the release of this information, because that's what they want. They want us to stop talking about it. They want people to be like, oh, people are just going to get annoyed if we keep talking about it. No, this is one of the greatest and biggest political scandals in our lifetime. We are seeing the cover-up of pedophilia. We are seeing the cover-up of billionaires who are fucking kids around the entire world. We are allowing Israel, essentially, and Mossad within Israel to corrupt the United States, to corrupt politicians, to corrupt billionaires and academia elites. We literally saw them talk about this at Student Action Summit. We saw Dave Smith talk about how Israel is no longer our ally, and I agree with this. I literally said yesterday, if we were able to prove that they were involved in this and that they knew about it, and that they let it happen, that we should go to war with them, not only just stop being allies with them, because not only are they not an ally because they take so much money, consistently undermine and drag us into regime change wars, and we get into way more conflicts because of them than we would if they weren't our ally, but they're also possibly running spy operations in our country. They're also possibly running espionage operations within our country, and they're also possibly running pedophilia operations within our country, literally letting billionaires traffic minors around the world to high-profile elites and politicians so that they can get what they want done, so that they can get their agenda pushed through. It's not crazy to think about when you think about politics, when you think about the fact that it is a sport and people will do anything to get ahead. This is not crazy to think. Countries have always been corrupted, governments have always been corrupted, and intel agencies have been the most corrupted. So the fact that people call it anti-Semitism when you want to criticize Israel-Mossad just shows that you are shilling for another country. You don't have America's best interests in mind. If you had America's best interests in mind, you wouldn't let a country that calls themselves our ally continuously fuck us over. You wouldn't allow them continuously to take our money year in and year out, to have literally our taxpayers essentially pay their health care, pay for almost everything that happens in that country. But no, they are going to drag us into wars. They're going to violate Donald Trump's entire campaign promise of no new wars. They're going to violate Donald Trump's campaign promise of releasing the Epstein files, because they won't give the Epstein files to Trump. Even if Trump is in the Epstein files and that's the reason they're not coming out, there's also a chance that Israel is just not giving the Epstein files up, that Mossad has them, and that nobody else has them, and the only people who have access to them would be Ghislaine, Mossad, etc., people like that. And we can never get full access to them. And if they allow Ghislaine to testify, like I said, she's either going to lie and lie right to everyone's face. It still is worth hearing, because why wouldn't anyone want to hear that? But she's still going to lie. She's Mossad. She's an intel agency. She is known to lie. Or she's just going to end up hanging in her cell next week. One of the two things is going to happen. I'm really upset that Donald Trump, he had one really big chance to win over the hearts of the American people beyond, trying to restore the economy and end wokeness and all the other things we voted for and the deportations. He had the ability to really put a huge, fuck you to the deep state, a huge hole in the deep state, and just kick them right in the chest and say, hey, we're not going to protect you anymore. It doesn't matter how much money you throw at politicians. It doesn't matter even the things you have holding over their heads. We are going to release the full Epstein list. We are going to be as transparent as we can with the American taxpayer, because the American taxpayers are the ones who are going to revolt eventually if we don't. And we're going to be calling for politicians' heads if we literally do not get the release of this information. This isn't going to be anytime soon, but eventually you're going to see people getting really upset in this country. You're going to see people revolting in different ways. I hope not violently. I hope they are revolting in ways like I've suggested earlier. I think if millions of Americans got together and decided ways to revolt against the government, like not paying property taxes, not voting, or not paying regular taxes, I think it would be very efficient, but it would have to be very well organized. It wouldn't be able to be like, just me or just 100 people or even 1,000. It would have to be millions and millions of people to really send a message to the government, not paying their credit card debt to shut down banks, different things like that, to send a message to the government that we're not willing to stand for the corruption, we're not willing to stand for the protection of pedophiles. Why does the government get away with protecting pedophiles? Why do they protect pedophiles? What do they gain from protecting pedophiles? Who is paying people off in the Trump administration? Or is Trump involved? Is Pam Bondi involved? Was Pam Bondi paid off? And why does Pam Bondi seem to be one of the most corrupt people in the Trump administration? I feel terrible because for months I reported on how transparent the Trump administration and how transparent Pam Bondi specifically was, only to do additional research and to see in front of my very eyes with the Epstein information that she's not as transparent as it looks. We talked about the bribery stuff with Pfizer. We've talked about all the other payments that she's received on the back end. And now we're seeing in real time Pam Bondi bury the Jeffrey Epstein client information, bury all the Jeffrey Epstein information. And she hasn't even given a fucking press conference since it's happened. She had one question asked to her by the media, and Donald Trump literally intercepted the question, said, it's weird that we're still talking about this creep. Who is still talking about this creep, Jeffrey Epstein? It's like, what are you fucking talking about? You're the creep. You're the one who is hiding the information. And I love you, Donald Trump, in a lot of ways, but right now it's hard to say that. It's hard to think that you are the person that you were in 2016. It seems like a very different person. I remember Donald Trump in 2016 in his inaugural speech said, Americans are going to come first. We're going to dismantle the deep state. We're going to take away all the woke politics. We are going to get rid of the people in the government who don't belong there. And now Donald Trump, like I said, is becoming those things. He's becoming the deep state. He's protecting pedophiles. He's protecting Epstein. He's protecting Ghislaine, essentially. He is protecting the entire deep state. And we'll get to later on the bill that happened where they tried to release all the Epstein information today. And at first glance, you're going to see the headlines and you'll be like, holy shit, why are all the Republicans trying to not release the Epstein information? But when we talk about it, you'll understand that it's all just a bunch of bullshit. That's not actually just what it was. And yes, it might have released some of the Epstein information, but it also would have done far worse in the long term. So we need to be able to release the information without them having to slip it in another bill and fuck up a bunch of other things. But Trump has allegedly also been calling influencers yesterday and today and saying, hey, the negative reporting on my, administration, I would appreciate it if you guys could tone it down. I would appreciate it if, we could have some gratefulness for all the things that have happened and if we could push on to these other headlines right now. And again, this is a classic PR move. This isn't something that's like crazy to think about. I'm sure Joe Biden would have done the same, George Bush, Obama, Clinton, and Trump. Like, again, this is a PR move. Every CEO, every president, every person in business, every person in a situation like that would do what they can to mitigate the PR damage. But when it comes to transparency to the American people, it is the least transparent thing possible. You're literally telling big conservative influencers like Charlie Kirk, Jack Posobiec, Crowder, Tim Pool, all these guys to fucking lay off talking about Epstein, talking about how you're just kind of letting him go. You're not going to look into it any further. And I get he's dead. It's not like he would walk free it's not, you know what I mean? It's not like he would spend the rest of his life in jail or whatever it is, but it's his legacy. It's the idea that the American people know what happened and that thousands of kids didn't get raped and no one was held accountable, that Prince Andrew is now allowed to travel the world on his world rape tour, and that Ghislaine Maxwell is the only one rotting in jail for the crimes of Jeffrey Epstein, even though she's essentially just a female rapist, according to the judge and jury and the DOJ and FBI now. And female rapists get no more than 3 to 5 years. So the fact that Ghislaine's in jail is just absurd. Like I've talked about before, for Free Ghislaine. The hats go on sale tomorrow. Hats, shirts, mugs, everything, pins, pens, magnets, fucking whatever you want. I don't care. We'll print it. Free Ghislaine. It's going on sale tomorrow. freeghislaine.com. No, I wish. I'm going to actually, someone definitely owns that domain. I wish. I would love to buy that, though. This is all absurd. We're living in one of the most absurd times in our government. They are lying right to the American people's face, expecting us to just accept it. They're acting like we're stupid. And while some of, I'm not going to lie, like a lot of Americans are dumb in a lot of ways. And I don't mean that they're just completely unintelligent. But the majority of Americans are not informed. They don't know. They don't know a lot about politics. They don't know a lot about, like the daily inner workings of politics, how lobbying affects politics, how foreign lobbyists, how foreign governments affect politics, how, lobbyists even within the country affect politics. And people need to really educate themselves on how this stuff works, because I've talked about this a lot, but Donald Trump in 2016 was self-funded. And he picked a lot of the wrong people in his cabinet because he didn't know what he was doing in politics, and it really fucked him over. And then Donald Trump, coming into 2024, was not self-funded. He picked a lot of the people who, in a lot of ways, were better, but some of them were placed there. Like we've talked about, J.D. Vance literally hated Donald Trump until Peter Thiel flipped him over, because Peter Thiel wanted, an ear. He wanted to be able to talk to the president, get his agenda done, and probably hide this Epstein stuff. We've talked about the connection of Peter Thiel and Jeffrey Epstein through Ehud Barak and Carbine 911, the Israeli spy firm they all founded together. They've all worked together on multiple business dealings. Peter Thiel and Jeffrey Epstein have multiple dinners together as well. So it's not crazy to think that Peter Thiel is on the list, or Donald Trump is on the list, or possibly even J.D. Vance is on the list. Less likely that J.D. Vance is, but still possible, and that they're covering for that they're covering for someone even within the cabinet. I really hope it's no one within the cabinet, because, I voted for Trump. If I found out Trump was a pedophile, that would fucking kill me inside. That would destroy me. I'm already very upset that we're in the situation we're in, where, I voted for Trump because I thought it was going to be the most transparent administration. And, we find out it's not the most transparent administration. So already dealing with that sucks. If I were to find out that he was actually on the list, and that's the reason we're not seeing it, that's the reason that Jeffrey Epstein was killed in the first place. Because, like I said, back to the timeline in the beginning of the episode, Donald Trump was president when he was arrested. He was president when he was killed. So it's not crazy to think that if this whole thing was being buried by Donald Trump and Donald Trump was on the list, that he was the one who set him up to be killed. He was in federal prison. Donald Trump is the head of the executive branch in the federal government. He would probably be one of the people who would be able to make that call to get that done. It's just, there's a lot of unanswered questions. I don't think we're going to get these answers to these questions, but that's why we need to keep talking about it, because we need to keep pushing the boundaries of what's acceptable. We need to keep pushing for these answers. The second we just say, fuck it, we're not going to talk about Jeffrey Epstein anymore, we're just going to let him and Ghislaine be done, Prince Andrew be done, we're not going to give him any shit anymore, that's the second they win. That's when the government takes control. When we are no longer talking about the rampant pedophilia that was running around this country and being allowed by our government, that's when our government has control of the American people. When we stop talking about things that matter because we just can't get answers. If we can't get answers, then we push for them. If we push for them and they don't give anything, then we revolt against them. And if we revolt against them and we don't get anything, then we overthrow them. That's what our founders wanted, and that's what we should be doing. And the fact that that's not happening, and again, I'm not even talking about violent revolution. I'm talking about the things I've said earlier: not voting, not paying property taxes, not paying your regular taxes, writing letters to your presidents, congressmen, senators, House representatives, all these things. Writing these letters, expressing your concern, expressing your right as an American to want to overthrow your government because it's come corrupt, because it does not have the interests of Americans anymore. It has the interest of APEC. It has the interests of pedophiles. It has the interests of BlackRock and billionaires. It doesn't have the interests of your everyday Americans at all. We literally called yesterday's episode BlackRock, APEC, and pedophiles, the ones who run America, or something like that. One of my favorite titles there is, but it's very true. People think Democrats and Republicans run America, or the deep state, but who is the deep state? The deep state is the lobbyists. The deep state is the people who are funding these things behind closed doors. It is BlackRock. It is APEC. It is the pedophiles. It is all these terrible corporations. It is the people who are abusing slave labor, and that's the only reason they want to push for legal immigration and illegal immigration. They want to sound woke and sound like they want to just accept everybody, and they don't want to, ruin the lives of some guy who just wants to make a better life for his family. But no, they don't give a fuck about that at all. They don't actually give a shit about that guy. No, they don't care about him at all. They just want to pay him $4 an hour if they even want to pay him at all. They want to use and abuse him like a slave. They want to use his kids like a slave as well. We talked about it last week, and I actually misreported the numbers. They had a major arrest on a cannabis farm, an ICE raid on a cannabis farm in Ventura County, California. There's like 450 illegals who were arrested. I reported that there was like 30, so I was off by fucking hundreds. But like 450 illegals arrested, and like 20 of them were kids. That's absurd to have 20 fucking illegal immigrant children, slave labor kids working on a farm in Ventura, California. The, state that claims to be so woke and accepting of everybody is literally pushing for slave labor, because that's what they have in that state. They have slave labor when they're letting kids or, abusing kids to work on fucking marijuana farms. Like, how is that not a problem to people? I want to get back into the Epstein stuff, but Tucker and Charlie Kirk at the Student Action Summit had like a weird back, and we talked about the Student Action Summit yesterday, but I kind of strayed away from it, forgot to finish talking about it. But they had a weird conversation where they were talking about Israel, talking about, Tucker went off about Israel. He said that Israel doesn't act like our ally, that they sunk the USS Liberty, they most likely killed JFK, that they brought us into a regime change war in Iran, that they're consistently bringing the United States into wars we don't belong in, that they have way too much influence in our government because of APEC. He said a lot of things like that. And Charlie Kirk was kind of being silent during most of it. And they were like, yeah, I don't like the anti-Jew, anti-Israel talk you see, which, again, like, I agree with. They said specifically, like, we shouldn't just be judging people based off the groups they're in, which, again, I kind of agree with, but kind of disagree with, and they do as well. They could say that on stage all they want, but they tweeted out the same things that I tweeted out, and they put out the same videos that I tweeted out, that they don't like Bondi because of who he is, and it's not just, like, again, like, you could say because he's a socialist and all this, but a lot of it has to do with the fact that he's a Muslim running New York City. And people could argue and say Islamophobia or whatever, but have you read the Quran? And if you have, I urge you to debate me on this. Their God literally married a 6-year-old and slept with a 9-year-old, and they say that's okay. Their God says that you can beat your wife and that you can have multiple wives. These are things that I don't think assimilate into American culture. So I don't think that someone who aligns with these values, follows these values, and aspires to that God should be running American politics. And beyond that, I don't think people who weren't born in America should be in American politics at all. It's one of the reasons I spoke out against Elon Musk ever being able to hold a political position in America. He wasn't born an American. No matter how much I love Elon Musk in a lot of ways, think he's a great innovator, extremely smart, and pushing this country forward, I never think he should be able to hold a political position because he was not born in this country. So that's one of the problems I have with Mamdani, and they said the exact same thing. They say, like, oh yeah, we don't want to, like, speak negatively about people as a whole, like speaking about Jews, which again we agree with, but then they, like, they contradict themselves when you look at their other statements about Zamdani, about everything happening in New York with Muslims taking over New York, and how it's a complete change of what the city used to look like, and how it's a complete change of the atmosphere of the city, and a complete change of what the laws are going to look like in the city. They're pushing for democratic socialism, which will eventually turn to communism. They're literally trying to push for New York City to be destroyed, one of the most capitalist cities in the country being pushed towards communism. It's sad to see, but my overall point with it is it's weird to see, Tucker and Charlie go back and forth about that when essentially they're contradicting themselves. Like, again, I agree, as a Catholic, we shouldn't be just judging groups. Every person is made in the eyes of God, and every person is different on their different individual qualities and who they are by their merit. But you can judge certain things about groups if they, all collectively follow a certain path, if they all collectively follow a certain book. Like, people make criticisms about the Bible, people make criticisms about the Talmud, and like I've said, I make a lot of criticisms about the Quran. I find it very grotesque and disgusting that their God is a fucking pedophile. And if anyone has a problem with me saying Muhammad is a dirty, disgusting pedophile and that God is fucking terrible, please come debate me on it, because I have no problem saying that the Muslim God is a dirty, disgusting pedophile, because literally it says that in the Quran. In your own fucking Bible, it says that. And when Tucker and Charlie say that they are generalizing a group, and they're saying things like I'm saying, but then they get on stage and they're like, oh, we don't want to generalize groups. And it's like, okay, you're not generalizing groups by criticizing Israel. Stop dancing around the subject like Israel fucking owns us, because this is why people think they do. Because two of the most prominent names in conservative politics get up there, two of the people who are known to be like free speech absolutists in a lot of ways, they get up on the stage at the Student Action Summit in front of thousands of young conservatives who all look up to Charlie Kirk and Tucker Carlson, seeing his videos, seeing how he's pushed for free speech under Donald Trump, and they say, what the fuck is going on? They say, why are you guys dancing around this subject? Why are you guys afraid to say that, yes, it is Israel, it is Mossad, and no, it's not all Jews, and like, yes, we don't need anti-Semitism and Jewish hate, but what we do need is Americans, young Americans, and Americans in our government to stand up to the Israel lobby, stand up to Israel as a country, and stand up to the corrupt Israeli government and their corrupt intel agencies. Because we literally have their intel agencies running pedophile rings in the United States. We have their country spying within the United States. We have them killing American soldiers, killing a president. We have them running blackmail operations on Bill Clinton, possibly blackmail operations on George Bush over 9/11. There are countless things that you can say about Israel and how they've undermined the United States, yet they still take $3.8 billion of our taxpayer dollars every year. These are things I have problems with, and like I said, I respect Charlie and Tucker in a lot of ways. I respect that they're some of the conservative influencers who are standing out against this, unlike bitch Ben Shapiro. We've talked about Ben Shapiro a lot. Ben Shapiro, you are one of the worst. You went from someone I admired to now someone who is protecting pedophiles, because you don't want to push conspiracy theories, as you want to call them. Or is it because you have a dual loyalty? Because you have more loyalty to Israel-Mossad than you have to the United States? Because you want the United States to support Israel in everything and anything. And if anything will make Israel look bad, you don't want it to happen. And if the fact that Israel and Mossad were running intel and pedophile operations within the United States on United States politicians for blackmail, that would make your country look pretty bad. So no, Ben Shapiro doesn't want to talk about it, even though Matt Walsh and other Daily Wire conservatives are talking about it, which, like I said, I'm predicting he'll be fired within the next few months over it, the same way Brett Cooper and Candace Owens were. They spoke out against the Israel lobby, and you saw what happened. They got fired. Or I don't think Brett Cooper got fired, but she left because she wanted to speak out against things happening, and they didn't want to let her. That's just what the Daily Wire is doing, what Ben Shapiro is doing, and what Israel's been doing. They've been silencing Americans over speaking out against this and calling it anti-Semitical if you do. It's not anti-Semitical to speak out against the Israel lobby. If I said I hated Jews, you could say that's anti-Semitical, but I don't hate Jews. What I do hate is Israel intel agencies running pedophile rings in the United States to blackmail United States politicians. And I have no problem saying that. I do hate that the Israeli government knew about it. I do hate the fact that our country knows that Israel was involved and is refusing to say anything because of the undying love and lobbying we have in our country towards Israel. That AIPAC funds like 80% of the government or 70% of politicians on both sides of the aisle. That's a problem, that a foreign lobbyist who's not registered as a foreign lobbyist is funding both sides of the politicians, and what do they get in return? Their greatest asset, Jeffrey Epstein, is essentially free from beyond the grave. It's just absurd. I don't know how anyone can listen to the facts and think any differently. I don't know how anyone could listen to what's happened and all the overwhelming fucking information and think differently. I don't know how anyone could be like, yeah, no, Jeffrey Epstein most likely was, he was just a child porn enthusiast. He just liked to fuck the kid every now and then, he just liked a good HJ. Like, no, it was so obvious he was Mossad. Every fucking person he talked to was Mossad. Every one of his friends was an Israeli billionaire. Every fucking connection he had spelled and screamed out Mossad. It's just fucking insane It's just like, I don't know. It's like when something's in front of you and you don't want to believe it's true, so you pretend it's not there, like those crazy people. And that's what's happening in front of our eyes. That's what our government's doing. We have Pam Bondi and Donald Trump trying to gaslight us like we're the fucking retards, like we're the dumb ones in this country. Like we don't know what 1 + 1 is. That like we can't understand it's 2. They're trying to tell us it's 8. But no, 1 + 1 is 2. It's always been 2. It always will be. And them trying to say that no, even though everyone Jeffrey Epstein was friends with was Mossad, even though he was sending money and giving money to Mossad, he ran an Israeli spy firm, even though he died under my watch and is being buried under my watch, this was all set up by Obama, who was in office back in '08. This was set up by Obama, guys. Don't worry. Obama and Biden and the deep state and Russia, they're the ones who actually cooked this whole fucking thing up. It wasn't Trump. Don't worry. No one was actually fucking kids. No, nobody. Everyone was innocent. The only victims actually are the Trump administration, Ghislaine and Epstein in this, because now they're trying to paint Trump as, they're hiding this. They're trying to paint Epstein as a sex trafficker and Ghislaine as a sex trafficker, when in reality, we owe apologies to all of them because, obviously Epstein's innocent. Obviously we got to free Ghislaine, and I feel so bad for Trump now. The guy took a bullet so that he could protect a fucking pedophile. I seriously question the reasons why Donald Trump is doing all this. Like, he stood there and took a bullet, and like, we all watched that, and it touched the hearts of millions of Americans in a lot of ways. Like, it scared you for a second. No matter what you think of President Trump, it is absurd to see a president get hit with a bullet and to have a positive reaction. So most people had negative reactions to this. They were like, holy shit, I hope he's okay. I'm praying for him. And then when he gets up and he chants fight, it pumps fucking patriotism in our hearts like adrenaline. You could feel it in America. You could feel a change around the country immediately. You could feel this overwhelming sense of like, fuck, we just won the election. And it wasn't just the feeling of like winning the election. It was the feeling of showing that we were going to fight no matter what. That our agenda of wanting to deport immigrants, stop woke policies, get rid of the deep state, we were willing to die for that. The same way Trump took a fucking bullet for it, a 5.56 round nonetheless. But then Trump gets into office and it seems great for the first few months, but then he shills for Israel, bombs Iran, he shills for Israel again and buries the Epstein files. It's like, okay, like, did you take a bullet to protect Israel, or did you take a bullet to, push America first? Because I'm not seeing the America First agenda. I'm seeing an average of like 18,000 deportations a month, which is low as shit for anyone who thinks that's high. That is so fucking low. We need like 4,000 a day. That's not even 1,000 a day. It's so low. That's basically just a little over 500 a day. That's not good. So we're not seeing that. We saw the debt ceiling raised. We saw the war happen. We saw the burial of the Epstein files. And I don't know. It's just, why did he take a bullet for this? What is the end goal now? What is he trying to push for? What is he trying to accomplish at this point? Because this is one of the biggest things. Like, you can no longer trust the JFK, MLK, or 9/11 information after this. All other transparency, like leaked files, etc., you can't trust it unless it comes from other sources, hack sources, etc. If you just get something leaked to Axios at 9 p.m. at night and they release it to us and it's like, oh, MLK actually got shot by this person, don't fucking believe it. Because why would you? Why would you believe anything this administration is telling you regarding transparency and releasing files when they just fucked up the biggest release of all time? My throat. A little carbon from the Diet Coke too. Oh, where were we though? I don't know. I just think it's crazy that Donald Trump took a bullet for this. Donald Trump took a bullet to essentially sell out, and I don't know. I hope he thinks about that. I hope I'm sure his social media team is great. Like, I'm sure he has people scouring social media, Trump influencers for smaller influencers, etc. Not even to push his agenda, but to just see what they're talking about, keep track of like the people who are on Trump's side, see where they're at now. And like, after seeing where Trump is at, after seeing that Donald Trump is now losing a lot of his voter base, and not only is he losing his voter base, that the Republicans are most likely going to lose the midterms now, maybe we will get some some acknowledgement, some answers. Because these are the things that need to happen to get these acknowledgements and answers. We need people to not shill for the party that they voted for just because they voted for them. We watched Democrats do the same thing. I talked about this yesterday, so I'll only briefly talk about it now, but we watched Hunter Biden smoke crack. We watched him leave cocaine in the White House. We watched him take bribes from different politicians around the world. We watched Joe Biden run the country with dementia and pardon people using the auto pen when he wasn't even the one running it, and pardon people like the January 6th committee, pardon people like Fauci. And Democrats never questioned it once. Very few and far between questioned his loyalty to the party, his loyalty to the American people, or what they were trying to accomplish. But Republicans are very different. We do stand up against things like this. People are like, oh, the entire MAGA base is just going to stand with Trump no matter what happens. But no, that's not true. You've watched a complete split of the MAGA base, of the Donald Trump voter base, of people who are saying, no, I will no longer support this until we get a full release of the Epstein information. And maybe Trump isn't complicit in it. Maybe it's Pam Bondi or someone around him burying it. But whatever it is, we voted for the release of the Epstein information, and we need that because it is important. It's important to know who the pedophiles are who are running the world, who the people are, who the companies are who are supporting this, who supported this and hid this and kept this from the American people, because there's a lot of them. There's a lot of these pedophiles, a lot of big corporations and politicians, Hollywood elites, academia elites, and colleges, schools, etc., who are hiding this information from the American people, who are walking around the earth right now with this information and will refuse to give it. We have independent journalists right now on X and like platforms literally trying to go around and interview old Epstein victims, trying to locate and track them down and talk to them about it, because there's no other way we're going to get information besides from the people themselves. They literally killed Virginia Roberts, Virginia Giuffre, and that's one of the reasons these girls are so scared to speak out, and they should be scared to speak out. Literally every girl who has spoken out has gotten killed, and you can't even say they've gotten killed because they've all just killed themselves. They've all hanged themselves, even after saying they wouldn't commit suicides. Virginia Roberts being the biggest case of it. She literally got hit by a bus, said she wouldn't commit suicide, and then committed suicide right after. It was just right in front of our eyes. They killed her, and they want us to believe that they didn't. Not everything Donald Trump is doing is a huge fuck up. I mean, I have been ripping on him for the last couple weeks. I'm not going to hide that. And like I've said, I don't fully support him right now. It's hard for me to support someone who's protecting pedophiles, and I don't know if he's fully complicit in it, but I can't write off the fact that Donald Trump could be on the list in some way or in some capacity because he's refusing to give it up. But we are seeing some more developments with Russia and Ukraine regarding Donald Trump, and I want to touch on that. I want to touch on other subjects that are happening around the country, because we've been talking, like I said, we've been talking about Epstein for 7 days now. I could talk about Epstein 24/7. It pisses me off. It is one of the things that consumes my mind. I want to know the information about it. But I don't think we're going to get the information about it. So we're going to take a brief break for this episode, at least on the Epstein stuff. We talked about it for, 30-some minutes. I mean, that's crazy. We've already talked for 35 minutes, but Trump just put a 50-day deadline on Russia to stop the war with Ukraine. He said that if the war is not stopped in 50 days, he will be supplying additional weapons, missiles, guns, armor, defense systems to Ukraine, and he will be putting the worst sanctions that have ever been put on Russia. This is obviously a pretty impactful threat. We've talked about Donald Trump's approach of peace through strength and how it's generally worked. The only time we could say it didn't work is the Israel-Iran conflict, and I wouldn't even say it didn't work there. I would say that Israel undermined Donald Trump directly and forced Donald Trump's hand to attack Iran, because Iran was on the verge of attacking the United States after we were defending Israeli airspace and controlling Iranian airspace. So you could say that Israel undermined him there. I wouldn't necessarily say that, it was a failure of peace through strength. I would just say it was a failure of his campaign promises of no new wars by not controlling, Israel in that scenario. But it had nothing to do with, whether Iran or not was negotiating with Trump. I think Trump actually would have been able to get the negotiations done if he continued the negotiations with Iran. But Trump is now putting this 50-day deadline on Russia. It seems like Russia has wanted to get this war done, but Ukraine has been the one who has not wanted to get it done. And, obviously this could just be the media saying these things, and we hope that both sides want to get it done. This war is a brutal war where millions of people are dying. We've talked about the fact that they're literally pulling mentally handicapped people with Down syndrome, Asperger's, some of the worst, I shouldn't say worse, but some of the mental illnesses, some of the mental defaults you see in this country, and they're bringing these people to the front lines of war, letting them die, someone's son, someone's brother, someone's father, etc. This is sad. And it's sad when any people are dying in these wars, especially when it's a war that's been going on for years that never should have happened in the first place. I do believe that if Donald Trump was in office, it wouldn't have happened in the first place because of the diplomacy that Donald Trump and Putin have. And I do think the diplomacy they have is great. I've talked about before that I'm not saying Russia should be our ally, but Russia acts more like our ally in a lot of ways than a lot of other countries, especially when you look at when Donald Trump is in office. Putin and Donald Trump get along really well together because Donald Trump understands, even though he doesn't agree with Putin on everything, he has to respect the fact that he is the president of his country, a very large country and a powerful country. And you can't just talk down to him and talk to him like he's a criminal all the time because you'll get nowhere with him. That's the same way Donald Trump was able to have a relationship with Kim Jong-un and all the other dictators around the world. We need diplomacy with dictators. We need this to happen if we want to have peace around the world. Donald Trump having diplomacy with dictators, having peace with dictators, and being able to have effective communication with people like Putin and Kim Jong-un will lead to more peace than will lead to war. We saw a war with Joe Biden because Joe Biden had no diplomacy with Putin. Putin saw him as weak because of the Afghanistan pullout, and Biden was weak. Biden probably wasn't even running the country, so why wouldn't he have done that? If anything, Putin made the correct decision from a intelligence and from a war standpoint because it was the perfect timing. He did it during a time where the president was very ineffective at stopping it. The president was very ineffective at negotiating it down. They even sent Kamala over there, and right after Kamala left, it happened. So obviously Kamala fucked that up in some way. The Joe Biden administration fucked that up, but we hope that we can see a resolution on this in 50 days. Like I said, the threat of sanctions and more weapons going to Ukraine is not necessarily something I'm excited about. I don't want to see us fund Ukraine with more weapons and missile defense systems. We do need to see an end to the war, so I do, respect Donald Trump's peace through strength negotiations, and I hope that works. But if the 50 days runs up and we're sending weapons to Ukraine, I don't... If Russia just doesn't give in, I'll be very upset. This, I don't know. I don't necessarily love this move, but Donald Trump has been good at negotiating so far. That is one thing I'll give him. I've talked about a lot of the fuck-ups he's had recently. But when it comes to tariffs, when it comes to negotiations, it's one thing he is great at, art of the deal. He understands business. He understands people, playing the man, playing the situation. So I do think he has some idea of what he's doing regarding this. It just... Like I said, as a Republican, as someone who wants, as not even a Republican, as an American first nationalist who just wants to put all our dollars towards America and towards American citizens and restoring values in America and bringing value back to the American dollar, I don't want to see us spend more money on more weapons going to Ukraine and putting more sanctions on Russia and building a worse relationship with a dictator around the world who's a nuclear power. I just don't see that being a benefit right now to the United States, especially when we have so many other countries who are undermining us, like Israel, like other countries in the Middle East, like countries in Africa, like Mexico and Canada, who call themselves our allies, but literally undermine us and take our dollars. These are things we need to fix. Domestic problems we need to fix. We need to fix these international problems too, but domestic problems are the main focus of where I'm at. Like I said, I'm an American nationalist. The idea of us sending money or weapons overseas to Ukraine just seems pointless to me right now. We've sent them $300 billion. That's $300 billion of our tax dollars wasted that could have gone to veterans, that could have gone to kids, it could have gone to fixing education. It could have gone to so many things, and I'm not arguing that spending more money on education makes it better. We've actually made the opposite argument that, the more money we've spent, the worse it gets. But that's because we spend the money in the wrong way on administrators and tenured professors who don't deserve to be there and don't actually empower these kids to learn and don't teach these kids what they need to learn. It just, I don't know. It's... it's not a bad offer he made them. Like I said, 50 days. It gives almost 2 months for this war to stop. To think that this war could be done in 50 days is awesome. Like I said, we've had millions of people die. They don't know the real count, which is really sad, but it's a lot of really young men who are dying on both sides. A lot of really innocent people who are dying, who aren't even fighting, are dying. And it's really just over a little bit of land. And it doesn't seem like the United States needs to be that involved. I understand wanting to have diplomacy and wanting to stop these wars, but like I said, as an American nationalist, I struggle with the idea of supporting wars around the world, sending more weapons to wars around the world, or sending dollars to other countries, especially ones that undermine us. We watched Zelensky undermine Donald Trump in in a press briefing in the Oval Office, was it? He said, you have this big ocean between you, so you're not feeling it now, but eventually you will. Like, that's a fucking threat, and I took it as one, and so did Donald Trump. So Donald Trump should not fold to Zelensky, and I don't think he is. Like I said, he's waiting 60 or 50 days to possibly put sanctions and send weapons, but I don't know. It does not excite me that this is the path we're going on right now. We are hiding Epstein, sending more money to Ukraine. We are mass amnestying illegals. I don't know. It feels like Kamala's president. It does not feel like Trump's president. I do want to get to some of our other topics, we have today. We have a couple smaller topics, a couple bigger ones, but one of the smaller topics is the Secret Service today had to shut down the White House lawn. They had to evacuate all the press and bring them into the briefing room to bunker down. This came after a tourist put their phone on video and threw their phone over the White House fence just to, have the video if they inevitably got their phone back. I don't think they got their phone back. The, Secret Service obviously took this as a threat that there could be a bomb attached. There could be, a remote detonation device, whatever, hardware, malware, whatever. Like, I have no clue. They obviously took it as a threat. They brought all the White House press, all the press who was there, they brought them all into the press briefing room. They literally shut down the White House due to security threats for a little bit to investigate. And it all came down to be, some dumbass put their phone on video and threw it over to try and get a video of what it would look like. And again, he's just a dumbass person. Like, hopefully they're punished for it, but not like crazy. Again, this is incompetence, but it's not some people need to go to jail for years for. Like, put them in jail for a month for it. 30 days is enough time they could learn their lesson. Maybe a couple months if you find out they had weird motive, but I don't know. I mean, this was stupid and innocent. Not innocent, but you get what I'm saying. It's not that fucking big of a deal. One other big thing is in Colorado. This is actually a fucked up story. This upsets me and pisses me off. In Colorado, a man who was a known sex offender, a Somali immigrant, all the charges against him have been dropped in a child kidnapping case because he was mentally unfit to stand trial. So a registered sex offender, a Somalian immigrant in the United States, in Colorado, is not able to stand trial in Colorado because they are mentally incompetent. If this child sex predator who is trying to actively kidnap children is too mentally incompetent to stand trial, I'm gonna say something bold, and bear with me for the people who don't like things like this, but why don't we just kill him? Like, why don't we just kill him? If he is unable to stop himself from trying to kidnap and molest children, and he can't understand that because he's mentally incompetent, and that's why they can't bring him to trial, what use does this person have to society? They're just going to, for the rest of their lives, continue to try and kidnap and fuck kids, and we're just going to have to stop it every time and not let them go to trial and not let them ever go to jail because they're mentally unfit? Why not just give this person the death penalty now? Why don't we just execute this person? Why don't we, fucking send them in a spaceship to Mars without a spacesuit? Why on God's green earth are we just allowing this person to roam the streets and walk? Why are we allowing this to happen? Why are we allowing pedophilia to run rampant in our country? Why are woke places like Colorado allowing people to say they're not mentally fit to stand trial, but they're mentally fit enough to go around kidnapping kids and raping them? Because that's what this person was trying to do. They were a known sex offender, a Somali immigrant, and the charges have now been dropped against them for kidnapping because they're just not fit to stand trial. This is just utter incompetence by Democrats, by woke identity politics. They want to appease everybody. They don't want to jail immigrants. They don't want to put another black man in jail. But again, this is stupid. This guy literally should be killed. And it has nothing to do with the color of his skin or his immigrant status. It has to do with the fact that he is a sexual predator who can't understand that the fact that him kidnapping and raping kids is bad. And you want to know how I know he doesn't understand that? Because that's the fucking argument his lawyer made to keep it out of court. His lawyer made the fucking argument that he is mentally unfit to stand trial because he doesn't even understand the crimes he was trying to commit were crimes. He does not understand it because he cannot understand anything. He is just so dumb, is what they're saying. So what use does this person have to America? Why don't we kill them? Why don't we put him on a boat and send him back to Somalia? Why don't we do anything besides keep him in this country? Because he is a waste to the he is waste to the oxygen we breathe in America. He is not as good as me of a person. He is not as good as my neighbors. He is not as good as any of the people who go to my church or any of the people who lived in my town who haven't fucked a kid. Every person in this world who hasn't tried to kidnap and fuck a child is better than this man, and that guy does not deserve to be breathing the same oxygen as us. And that's not a crazy thing to say. People who molest children don't deserve the same oxygen as people who don't. They deserve a shittier, worse oxygen that makes them die faster. They deserve hell. They deserve the worst thing. Yeah, I literally want to put ice picks in these guys' fucking balls. I want to chemically castrate them myself. I want to fucking kill pedophiles. I hate pedophiles. I hate the idea that our government protects them. I hate the idea that the Colorado government is letting this guy walk because he's mentally unfit. And I gotta pop the video up of this fucking guy for you guys. I'm gonna pop it up for you. But this guy is fucking insane looking. Like, look at this shit. This guy looks like a fucking insane person. He looks so crazy. Like, why is this person even allowed to walk on the streets? And we're now seeing people like Charlie Kirk, like Matt Walsh, Tucker Carlson, and all the people who are starting to get more and more red-pilled and starting to push this American nationalism that I'm pushing. You're starting to see them say, like, what benefit has America ever had from allowing Somali immigrants in? And I understand that because it makes sense. We get no benefit from allowing Somali immigrants in, but I take it a step further. No American gets any benefit from any legal or illegal immigrant unless you are owning a business and exploiting their labor, abusing their slave labor, or you're a government official using them as a pawn. So, yes, while it is true what Matt Walsh and Charlie Kirk are saying that America in no way benefits from allowing Somali immigrants to come into our country because they do not assimilate to American culture. And you can't say that's racist. It's not me saying that don't allow black people. It's saying don't allow people who are mentally unfit to stand trial because they don't understand that kidnapping and raping a kid is a bad thing. Yes, those people should not be in our fucking country. They should be sent back to their own or killed in ours, because why the fuck does that person exist? What the fuck? And again, like, oh, I feel like I'm going insane. I don't know. I'm going insane talking about this stuff. The fact that this is what's happening. The fact that every day there's a new story of a different government agency, a different city, a different whatever, protecting fucking pedophiles over woke identity politics, over lobbying, over whatever it is. It's crazy to me. This guy, you see him, he literally looks insane. He tried to kidnap and rape a child after he's already raped a child. Like I said, he is a registered sex offender for molesting a child. So he's already guilty of doing it. He's trying to do it again, but no, they don't want to prosecute him again because he doesn't even understand that it's wrong. This guy is so fucking dumb that he can't understand it's wrong. That is the country we're living in now. Those are the people the Democrats want to import in to steal your fucking jobs, steal your dollars, live next to you in your neighborhoods. Guess what? I don't want that shit. I don't want that guy as my neighbor. I don't want to import the entire third world to live in my neighborhood. I don't want to import the entire third world to live in my country. I want the United States to support American nationalism. I want us to stop all legal and illegal immigration. I want us to stop asset managers from purchasing all the single family homes. I want it to be able, not only people just able to, I want it to be easy for people to build families and have a home and do the things that Americans have been able to do for generations. I don't want us to have to worry about crime. I don't want us to have to worry about overwhelming the public system with immigrants and illegal immigrants. I don't want to have to worry about the language of America eventually changing. These are things they're talking about. This is crazy. We need to get back to American nationalism. We need to stop all these woke identity politics, and people need to stop saying it's racist to speak out against things like this, because no, I don't hate anyone because of their race, because of their brown or their white or their yellow or their black. It doesn't matter to me. It comes down to your character and your ability to assimilate into American culture if you're trying to. And I don't think we need any legal immigrants now until it's a necessity for the country. We have too many people as it is. We don't have enough jobs for the people. We don't have enough homes for the people. We need to create a society and an America that our founders would be proud of. And we've lost that completely. And again, it's not this fucking rogue sex offender in Colorado's fault. It's not this one Somali immigrant's fault who wants to rape kids, but he is the problem. People like him are the problem. The people who come into America, don't assimilate to our culture, commit crimes, overwhelm the public systems. Like when this guy and these people, they need to go to the doctor, they go to the emergency room and they don't pay. That's their doctor. They don't just go to the doctor. They overwhelm the public systems. They overwhelm the public schools. They are literally stealing our jobs. And, they could say like, oh, people wouldn't want to do these jobs. Yes, they don't want to do them for $5 an hour like slave labor, but Americans would do them for American wages, which is what American companies should be paying. We shouldn't allow our companies also to offshore manufacturing to abuse slave labor because they can't in the United States. There are some companies who abuse the slave labor in the United States through illegal immigrants, but then you have companies like Nike and like Lululemon and other companies who offshore their manufacturing to other countries that allow slave labor. So Nike pays a kid 25 cents and a fucking potato chip to make the shoes you're wearing right now, but nobody in America cares. We all have fucking iPhones. I'm filming this on a Mac computer. Everything here in this I have an iPad over there. I'm not proud of it. I support slave labor as well when it comes down to my purchasing. I don't like to. I try and support American businesses whenever I can, but they make it impossible, and it's sad. We need a government that doesn't allow this to happen. Even if our iPhones were a little more expensive and our shoes and our shirts were a little more expensive, our dollar would go a lot further if we actually brought back American nationalism. Well, yes, products would be slightly harder to make in America. Like I said, if we could bring value back to the American dollar, it will matter. In the Great Depression, people were poor, but they still were able to get through the day. 5 cents could buy you 2 fucking meals or a haircut, or it could get you through the day. Nowadays, a little bit of money doesn't get you through because your dollar is not worth shit. It's not just about the fact that we don't have enough dollars. It's about the fact that your dollar is not worth dick anymore, and we need to make it actually worth something. The dollar has had an insane decrease in value. The housing market's completely fucked. Boomers are fucking it all up. Legal and illegal immigrants are fucking it all up. Democrats and Republicans are only making it worse. They're really a uniparty system working against us. They're unified on 85% of the issues and separated on 15, and they want to continuously separate us on those 15% of the issues. But realistically, we need to dismantle the entire system, get rid of lobbying, stop offshoring manufacturing. We need to stop the two-party system to create an actual uniparty system that is what our founders intended. I urge everyone, I'm going to talk about our book of the week at the end of the day, but I urge everyone, our book of the week this week, the Federalist Papers. Read the Federalist Papers. 86 essays that show you what American nationalism is. 86 essays that show you what our founders intended for this country, why they wanted the Constitution, why they wanted the Declaration of Independence, why they wanted our founding documents to be solidified in stone, not written in pencil so you can erase it one day. They wanted these things to withstand time, withstand corruption, withstand tyranny. They wanted these things to stand forever. Our founders were geniuses in a lot of ways, and no, they weren't perfect. They were crazy fucks. Like George Washington literally got in a wooden boat in a frozen lake to go kill a bunch of guys on Christmas to win a war. Guy was a sick animal, but you gotta respect it. That's what made America. We pushed the boundaries of what's socially acceptable. We didn't just follow the rules. We disobeyed them, and we created our own. We pushed to be greater than everybody else, and we didn't do it in the shadows. We did it right out in the open. We were the greatest country to ever exist and still are in a lot of ways, but we're seeing the fall of the empire. We are seeing Woke identity politics. We're seeing corrupt politicians, pedophiles, APEC, and BlackRock run our government, and we're seeing the fall of the American empire in real time. We need to stop this. We need to. I mean, that was a long rant there, but I don't know. I don't know how that whole rant came from me talking about a sex offender in Colorado. That's what I love about my ADHD, though. I love that, like something like that happens and I can just go off for 20 minutes about how this country's gone to shit, because it has. And again, it's not all due to the one fucking asshole in Colorado who wanted to try and rape a kid, but people like that are the problem. And people who want to paint people like me as racist are the problem as well. You can't call it racist to call out statistics. You can't call it racist to call out facts. You can't call it racist to say that people don't assimilate into American culture when they don't. The Quran does not assimilate into American culture in many ways, because Americans don't have multiple wives and beat their wives, and they don't fuck kids. That's just not how America works. That's just not how any society in the world should work, but definitely not my country. If I find out you're fucking kids in my country, if I find out you're doing any of this in my country, Florida, you get put to death for that. And I'm very happy about it. I'm very happy that we're the land of putting pedophiles down. Except, the one we didn't put down is apparently Jeffrey Epstein. And when you really look at the connections, Pam Bondi was one of the people who just didn't look into the Palm Beach's, investigation into it. When she was Attorney General in Florida, why didn't she look into the investigation that Palm Beach did into Jeffrey Epstein? She would speak about it all the time and how they just cut this sweetheart deal, Acosta. But Pam Bondi never looked into it. So the more and more I find out about Pam Bondi, the more corrupt I really think she is. The more corrupt it really seems like she is. I hope that the DA or whoever decided to drop these charges against this pedophile in Colorado decides to resign or kill themselves. No, I'm just kidding. I hope they decide to resign or, I don't know. You're dropping charges against a pedophile because he's too mentally unfit to understand that he shouldn't be committing pedophilia. Do you feel special? Do you feel smart? Does your mom tell you she's proud of you? You're a fucking idiot. I just, come on. This shit pisses me off. I'm going to get to our next topics because I've been talking and ranting about this one for a while now. Our next topic, it kind of relates to Doge cuts and to Donald Trump and to Donald Trump's agenda. It is a win for Donald Trump. Over 1,400 bureaucrats were fired over the weekend. And these are people who are essentially doing nothing to benefit the American taxpayer. Wasteful jobs, waste, fraud, and abuse. They were DEI jobs. They were administrator jobs. They were extra jobs that were wasting taxpayer dollars. Jobs within the Department of Education, USAID, these things. 1,400 of these bureaucrats were fired and laid off, and they're now taking to social media to rip on Trump, saying, look what he's doing. He's firing all these people. He's destroying the American economy. No, fuck you. How about look inwards? You guys were destroying the American economy. You guys were wasting my tax dollars every day. You guys wanted to go take a shit and it cost me $10 every time, each one of you. You guys suck. I'm sure your salaries were astronomical. I'm sure the bonuses were even better, and I'm sure the back-end deals were even sweeter than that. The people who are working in the government, not the elected officials, the bureaucrats, the people in Washington, D.C. who are taking paychecks from politicians to push these things through on the back end. There are way too many of them. And the fact that we got 1,400 of them out of their positions, that's a huge fucking win. And it doesn't matter if you support Biden, Trump, or it doesn't matter. This is what you should be voting for. This is great. This is less waste, fraud, and abuse, less people stealing our tax dollars, less people pushing woke agendas within the government, less people interfering with the president, less people interfering with the House and the Senate and interfering with politics in general, less people interfering with the media, less people trying to stop what the president is trying to get done. This is important. This is what we voted for. Again, we've been talking about nonstop over the last week. Donald Trump has not been doing what we voted for. There are some things, it's not like the entire 6 months has been a sham. There have been great things. Almost the entire first 4 months were great outside of one or two minor details. But now this is a big win. It doesn't fix the Epstein stuff. It doesn't fix, the fact that Russia-Ukraine is still going on. But it is a win, and we have to celebrate wins where we can get them, no matter what side of the aisle people are on. We got to celebrate the fact that there's less waste, fraud, and abuse, that our government's able to save money, and that our government is able to fire these people, and we're able to start the process of firing bureaucrats. Elon Musk talked about the fact that resigning people out of government and bureaucrats and things like this was almost impossible because of the time it would take to actually do it and file the paperwork, because it was stored in a fucking mine, like a literal mine under the ground, like a kind of like a coal mine, but not really. But you get what I'm saying, like a mine under the ground they were storing this information in. And the fact that we're able to now get this done at an efficient rate is, I mean, it's imperative to the success of a nation. It is imperative that the United States is able to hold bureaucrats accountable for the waste, fraud, and abuse that they have accounted for in the United States. The fact that they have wasted all our tax dollars. There's not too much to talk about there. Like I said, it's great they got fired. I wish they would fire another 1,400 or another 10,000 of them, but we can only hope for that. We can only hope for more. I want to talk a little bit about immigration, and then I do want to talk a little bit about our last topic, which is going to be about the Genius Act and the Epstein files, which they tried to slip into the Genius Act. So we'll finish up with Epstein again. What a fucking surprise. We've been talking about it all week. But to talk about immigration, we are now seeing Donald Trump push forward the narrative that we will be getting these visas, that the amnesty that they said they weren't going to give out, they're not, but they're just giving visas. So they are giving amnesty. They're just wrapping it up differently. They're wrapping shit up in, nice wrapping paper and telling us that it's cake. But no, it's still shit. It's still millions of people replacing American jobs, devaluing the American dollar, supporting foreign affairs and foreign nations over supporting American citizens. You have 58% of people, even people who now don't support Trump anymore because of the release or non-release of the Epstein information, who are still saying they want the mass deportations of the invasion Joe Biden allowed. There are 10.5 million illegal aliens who came in under Joe Biden. There are over 40 million illegal aliens in the country as a whole. Some even say 60 million. I say 40 million is probably a pretty correct answer, maybe 45, but I want to remove them all. And I understand you can't just remove them all at once. I understand that that would be a huge hit to the country, but what we need to do is remove almost all of them, especially the ones who are generating next to no money for the country. If people are, working as slaves on farms, we need to liberate those people and free them. If people are working for minimum wage on farms, again, they're not really contributing much to the economy. We need to eliminate we don't need to kill those people, but we need to send them back to their countries. We need to eliminate their positions. We need to fill them with American roles where they're actually going to get paid American wages. Because this is America. You don't go to China and see Americans taking Chinese jobs everywhere. You don't go to Japan and see that. You don't go to Mexico and see that. Like, in America, we're one of the only countries where we allow people to pour in and take all our jobs, and we don't complain about it, and we actually import more people to take the jobs. It's not a necessity in America right now. In the 1900s, we needed people to come in and build the railroads, build the cities, the trains, the subway. We needed people to build America, but America's been built. The dollar's now worth shit. We have too many people. We don't have, people having babies. We don't have people, getting homes. We don't have people seeing an increase in their wages. And we do just see an increase in the number of immigrants we're bringing in year after year. So I do think it's a huge contributing factor, illegal and legal immigration, to the decline in the American economy. I think we need to stop it and get back to the American nationalism that I've been pushing, and the American nationalism that our founders intended. American nationalism is actually a really beautiful thing. People like to make it seem like it's a crazy thing, but it's not. It's what this country was literally founded on and what this country should be. American nationalism is just wanting to put America first in every way, wanting to put America over Russia, wanting to put America over Mexico, over Canada, over Africa, over Europe, over Asia, over every single country, and putting American citizens first and making sure that the American government knows that their role is to work for the American people, that their entire role of being elected is to work for their constituents. They are not there to try and push different things onto their constituents. They're not there to push a woke agenda. They are not there to try and, fulfill the destiny of a corrupt politician or a corrupt bureaucrat or a NGO or a, behind the scenes pedophile or APEC or BlackRock. No, their job is to work for us. Their job is to not have lifelong alliances, because lifelong alliances leads you to things like we're seeing with Israel right now, where we literally have a president protecting a pedophile because he doesn't want to hurt the feelings of Netanyahu and Mossad, where we literally have a president bombing Iran, a country of 90 million people, because Israel is pushing for a regime change and they want to dress it up as us wanting to attack the nuclear facility. It is very obvious through just looking at history, looking at the facts, looking at what people said and their intentions behind their actions, to understand that all the things that they're saying are not true, that right now the politicians are not working for us. They are working for APEC, BlackRock, and pedophiles. They are working for these corrupt three-letter agencies. They are working for the bureaucrats and NGOs, the Democrats and Republicans. They are working for the establishment, not the American people. The American people, they hold the power. We hold all the power in this country. The Federalist Papers talk about that. They talk about how we hold the power and we have not only the right but the duty to overthrow corrupt governments. And that's what we should be doing. I want to talk about our last topic today before we check the headlines, but the Genius Act failed today. So the Genius Act failed its vote, 211 to 210. Every single Republican voting no. That was the 211, obviously. And Ro Khanna, who's on the left, independent, slipped in at the last second that the full release of the Jeffrey Epstein client list and all investigative materials will be released if this bill passes. Which sounds like a great thing, but it's not a great thing to throw it into a bill that you know would fail otherwise, and now this is your way of pushing people to vote for it. This bill was going to fail because it was going to ruin cryptocurrency. What this bill was going to do was create a central bank digital currency. It was going to basically make Bitcoin a lot less valuable. It would eliminate the anonymity, oh geez, I can't even say the word, just being anonymous on Bitcoin. It would eliminate the... I don't know. I mean, it would eliminate like I said, the value of it. It would make it very hard to, get an off-ramp Bitcoin, into these other stable coins. It would put government regulations and government controls over these stable coins. And they tried to shove the Epstein information in there. Like, let's do a separate vote on the Epstein information. I guarantee it passes with flying colors, and if you do a standalone bill on the Epstein thing, you can actually get a real list of the people who don't want it to come out and the people who do. But with this, every Republican voted against it because they were against the crypto stuff. And I'm sure maybe there would have been a couple people who voted against it because of the Epstein stuff, but now we won't know. Now we're just hearing the Democrat speculation and Democrats on Twitter saying every Republican voted against the release of the Epstein information. Okay, but that's 1/3 of the headline. They voted against it because you tried to jam it next to a crypto bill. It's the same as when they wanted to say, oh, Trump killed the border bill. He killed the border bill because it was going to allow 7,000 illegals to come in a day. It wasn't actually a good border bill. Or it's like when they killed bills in the past, but the bills actually had hundreds of millions to Ukraine going in them in the 2000th page. It's just I don't know, have more standalone bills and you'll see more success and you'll be able to actually get real headlines. But pushing the headlines of Republicans are voting against the release of Jeffrey Epstein information, they're trying to protect Trump, is misleading. And while it could be true, we'll never actually know because we're not putting it in a standalone vote. Put it in a standalone vote, and if even one of them votes against it, or a few of them, those are the people we need to root out immediately, and it's very apparent then. But if you're mixing it with this, and I don't know, now 211 of them voted no, it lost, and we have no way of knowing which ones voted no for Epstein, which ones voted no for crypto. And I'm assuming the overwhelming majority voted no because of the crypto things. But again, we'll never fucking know now. And Ro Khanna, you're just an asshole for this. Again, just have a little patience, wait a couple days to do it in a different meeting or do it in a separate bill. But doing it all in one just was not an effective method. It led to the bill getting killed, and it led to... Now we don't know who actually wants to vote to see the information and who wants to vote to hide it. There's no way to decipher who was voting for the crypto stuff and who was voting for that. It's just, I don't know. It's do these people even think these things through? Does Ro Khanna have any brain cells? I don't know. The government should not be in charge of crypto. That's all I know. It's clear that the government fucks up all the financial systems that they're in charge of. Our dollar is literally worth shit. I do not want them in charge of Bitcoin. I want Bitcoin to continue to grow in value the way it's grown in value. We've seen it shoot to almost like 120K or whatever. And I'm a big believer, there's not financial advice, that Bitcoin will exceed the 10 million point at one point. I think Bitcoin will be very, very worth it to invest in. They can't print more of it the same way they continuously print more dollars every day. And the more legal and illegal immigrants that continue to come over the country's borders, we're going to have to continue to print more dollars over time. These are all things that tie in together. Things the media doesn't want to talk about, but I will talk about it because I'm not afraid to. That's kind of our show for today. I do want to go over any, let's see. I've been doing this week, seeing if there's any headlines and reporting on the headlines. Let's see if there's anything that popped up while I was filming the show. Here we go. More information on Epstein. Officials say that the metadata from the raw Epstein prison video shows approximately 2 minutes and 53 seconds were removed from one of the two stitched together clips. The cut starts right at the missing minute. Wow. That is absurd. 2 minutes and 53 seconds are missing. I mean, how much time does it take to go in and kill a person in a jail cell? I would imagine under 3 minutes with the correct team. These fucking idiots tried to cover up a murder of a pedophile in a jail who was on suicide watch, and they couldn't even get someone smart enough to figure out that if they did it on Adobe Premiere Pro and they cut multiple minutes out and stitched multiple clips together, that people would be able to find the metadata to find that out. What the fuck? Are they dumb? How dumb is the White House's social media? I thought they were smart, but I mean, the fact that they are, they don't understand metadata, they don't understand that, your basic hacker could figure this shit out. Are you kidding me? Okay, let's see if there's any more about this. Let's see. Wired reached out to the White House for answers. They said refer to the DOJ, and then the DOJ said refer to the FBI, and then the FBI declined to fucking comment. Are you fucking kidding me? Oh my lord, this gets even worse and worse every second. I mean, let's see. Yeah, I mean, the fact that 3 minutes are missing, that just shows you everything you need to know. We thought only a minute was missing. 3 minutes were missing. The video was edited. It was stitched together. Oh, wow. This government is more corrupt than we thought. Let's see. Cuomo has announced he's running for mayor as an independent following his loss on the Democratic side to Bondi. He's still critiquing the socialist policies. He's not going to win. Again, it all comes down to that debate. He said in the debate, where's your first foreign trip going to be? Every one of them said, of course it's going to be Israel. And then Bondi was the only guy. Mamdani goes, why would I go on a trip? Why wouldn't I just spend my time with my constituents in New York? Which was the correct answer that everyone should have fucking said. But somehow only he knew. Let's see. Ghislaine's trending again. Speaker Mike Johnson says he supports Ghislaine Maxwell testifying to Congress, demands the DOJ release everything they have on Epstein. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, nothing crazy new, just that now they're saying they want her to. After yesterday, they were saying no. Let's see, what else is trending right now? Trump is saying he wants to see Adam Schiff prosecuted, but it's like, okay, Trump, we kind of want to see you prosecuted right now. And, like, it's not a definitive, but it's like, if you're not going to release this information, what's holding us back from prosecuting you? Yeah, I mean, it doesn't look like there's a ton of other things that I've missed. A CEO of Crowds on Demand said he was offered $20 million to recruit demonstrators for the anti-Trump protests. That's nothing new. Again, like, they've been paying people to protest for a long time. Yeah, I think that's it for today. I don't think there's going to be much more. I think that is all the news we have. It was a good show, though. We talked about a lot of different topics. We talked about Trump blaming Obama for the Epstein thing, which is ridiculous, about how he was calling conservative influencers to try and get them to stop talking about, his administration in a negative way after the Epstein stuff. We talked about the relation between Peter Thiel and Epstein and Trump and J.D. Vance. We talked about the absurdity of the man who was allowed to, be let go because he's unfit to stand trial in Colorado after he had already been arrested for molesting children. We talked about the Genius Act and how it was dumb that they put the Epstein releasal into the crypto bill that was going to fail anyway. They did that to try and make Republicans look bad. It was a great PR move for them because it's working. People on X are, they're saying, oh, every Republican voted against the release of the information, which is technically true. But realistically, they also voted against the government owning cryptocurrency, running all of crypto. Like, that's a problem. That's just common sense 101. So we talked about a lot today. We had a lot of good topics. Hopefully we do see Ghislaine testify. Like I said, you can't take anything that bitch says is true. She is a child molester and a pedophile, and you can't trust a pedophile. That's just rule number one of life. You never trust a pedophile. Why would you? I mean, it's just every kid who ever trusted a pedophile got raped. So why would you trust a pedophile? It's just very, very clear it's, not the right move. I want to talk about our book of the week before we go. I actually had a different book up there yesterday. The book I'm doing this week is an audiobook, so I put up yesterday Matthew Perry's book, his Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing. It was his autobiography. The reason I changed it, though, is his face is on the cover. And a lot of autobiographies have a face on the cover, but they're not really just staring directly at you. His is just looking right at you, and it was just looking at the camera the whole time. I'm like, that's just kind of weird to have Matthew Perry staring just at you the entire time. It's got to be weird for like an hour and change. So I put the Federalist Papers up because I feel like it's never been more relevant now, the Federalist Papers. A lot of people, because of the shitty American education we get, don't even know what the Federalist Papers are or understand them, but they are the perspective of our founders about wanting to push the American agenda through, what America should be, what American nationalism really is, because our founders were American nationalists. Our founders wanted all the things that I'm pushing for on this show, and liberals and progressives and even some neocons and conservatives want to frame like what I'm saying is crazy and American nationalism is not what this country is, but it is literally what this country was founded on. If you read any of our founding documents, they want American nationalist values. It's what they push for in this country. It's what this country has always grown on. When this country was in its golden ages, its real golden ages, when we were building our greatest cities, when we were expanding the Western world, we didn't have all these woke identity politics. We didn't have all these negative things going on, and we had an American nationalist perspective. We had what our founders were pushing for us, in our blood, in our schools, in our minds, and it was being taught to each generation, and we had this closeness between generations that you see in China and other countries, but you don't see in America because we're losing that. And you lose that when you lose religion, when you lose sense of morality, when you start deriving your own sense of morality in your mind. The reason I say a lot of people have worse morality than me is because I derive my morality from God, from the Bible, from the Pope, from these things. I have a place that tells me where these things are right and wrong. If you're just creating in your own mind what's right and wrong, and you get to create that for yourself. That's a very slippery slope to things like the Holocaust. It's a very slippery slope to just, committing mass tragedies, of saying like, oh, like it's within moral ground for me to go kill all these people or hit this person or say this thing to this person just because I don't like them or because I don't agree with them or because I don't like their political affiliations or their religion or their skin color. That's not how things work. We need an American nationalist perspective where things come from fact-based reality, statistics, and we push the ideologies and we push what this country was supposed to be founded on, which again is American nationalism, American patriotism. I'm James Pascalides. This has been episode 89 of America Unfiltered. I love doing this show. Again, I've been doing it for months now, and I'm really starting to see in the last few weeks and month, like, myself really started to get more and more comfortable with doing the show. I hate being on camera. I've always hated being on camera, but I love doing this, and I'm getting more used to it, and I want to be able to keep doing it every day. Everyone, please like, comment, subscribe, leave any questions, send a super chat if you have any questions, although it's never necessary. But I want to be in touch with my supporters. I want to be in touch with my listeners, and anyone who does have questions or wants to get my perspective or take on things, or if you want to float a conspiracy by me or whatever it is, just reach out anytime. And I'm James Pascalides. This has been episode 89 of America Unfiltered. I hope you guys have a blessed day, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Thank you.